small business. We do it for the love and we do it for the money. And sometimes it can be pretty tough getting paid. Having a long list of debtors won't help your business like having the money in the bank will. Today, we're talking to Kat Paz about debtors and how best to deal with them. Welcome to the program, Kat.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Pretty excited about debtors. Wow, we talk about all the sexy stuff here on taking care of business.
Yes, we do. I know it's a word that I only learned in uni myself.
Because I always get confused between debtors and creditors.
Yes.
It's like stage right and stage left. Like, oh, which one? Oh,
Because you do have both in your business. Only one makes you more money.
Yeah.
The other one, you're parting with money.
Right.
So, debtors, yes, debtors, you look at the word, you think it's debt. But then for business, it's actually people that owe you money. Another word for debtors is accounts receivable. So if people say receivables accounts, all of that stuff. Yeah.
See, and I still get confused with that. Like, are we getting the invoice or are we getting the money? I get like,
It's a good point, actually, because I read my bank statements the other way around, because in accounting we do it the other way around. And I find that so interesting when it says I'm in credit. I'm like, what? I'm in debt? No. But actually, when it's in business, if it's a debtor, it's someone who owes you money.
That's people that owe you money. We should just call it that and no one can get confused.
Yeah.
People that owe you money.
So I need to do invoicing. It means you're creating debtors.
Okay, so that's who they are. Rightio. So debtors are anyone that owe you money.
Yeah.
From work. And you've probably sent all these people an invoice.
Yes, you would. And it always starts that way. It starts with a tax invoice to clients, and you expect to be paid later. It all depends as well. And I would just go back a bit because we defined debtors. We might as well talk about tax invoices, because this is really important. There is actually guidance on what is a legal tax invoice. On the ATO website, it's if it's less than $82.50, you don't have to give a tax invoice, but it's always good practice in your business to have a tax invoice.
That's $82.50.
Including GST.
Okay, cool.
So it's $75 without GST.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what you need to do, issue one. And then there's ones that are less than 1,000, more than 1,000, but I'll talk about just generally, because there's no way you want to have 4 templates, do you? You just want to have the one. So they say a legal tax invoice has your identity. Of course, we need to know who sent it to you, your ABN. And also state on it that it says tax invoice. That's important. And a description of the item sold or the service provided. Include GST amount, even if you're not registered. Have the GST amount there as 0 so that people can check. Your ABN is publicly available information and your registrations go under that. And the date of the invoice is really important. That's where they stop. But I think this is where the problems start because, okay, you've issued the invoice, but I would also add a few things. The due date. When do you have to pay it? And be reasonable. 7 days is too short. 14 days seems just about right. 30 days is just too long for you as a business, but 7 days seems pretty short, especially since you're asking to chase it up anyway. And then payment details. How do people pay you? Offer them methods and don't put it at the bottom like a disclaimer. Make sure it's a bit higher in the invoice, so it's noticeable. Make it bold because that is the reason why you sent it in the first place. And include other terms. Include if people want to pay over the phone, what they need to do if that's the case, or if they've got questions, how to email you. So that's at the bottom of invoices if you can include that. And another one I always say is an invoice number. So I've gotten invoices that just have my name. And it's like, okay, but the invoice number should be the name of the document so that you can chase it up more reasonably than to say, your invoice is overdue and it's my name again.
And particularly if it's somebody that you do ongoing work with. So you're going to have a number of invoices.
And some get missed because things happen, especially if you work on a monthly basis. Then you're able to drill down and go, oh, that invoice. And you might have paid it. But then they have crossed it out differently, if you know what I mean. So invoice numbers just stop that argument of you owe me money.
And with the when it's due by, I guess maybe it's better to put a due date rather than 7 or 14 days from put a due date on it.
Put an actual date on it and make it very obvious when that date is due. And if you are to looking at like charging fees and stuff, you're actually required to make that known in your invoicing. If you say you're going to charge late fees. Yeah.
Don't just do it.
Don't just do it. It causes a really uncomfortable conversation. But nothing worse. I've seen invoices because it's not such a requirement for you to put a due date. So I've seen invoices without a due date. And guess what people do? It becomes not urgent, not important.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll pay things according to due date.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Unless you create one, why would you anyway?
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you make it easy for people to pay you. Yes. So we got a message actually from Graham on Taking Care of Business on Facebook. And he was asking, tell me, why is it so hard for me to get paid? I've been chasing this person up over and over and over again. What do I do to get paid? Now, I can always find someone. Like, we don't want to end up at small claims court, especially if you've done it. But don't get the rent yet, Graham. Don't. When the debt is late, just don't get it. It's before you send the invoice and start sending the calls. This is the foundation. So we now talked about the tax invoice, but problems start at the beginning. So, short payment terms, I mentioned that. They're just too short and people forget about it. And then also not communicating how you work and having it in writing. So having terms and conditions before you start working. A handshake is great, but I'm not a lawyer, but I just think if it's on paper, it's better.
That's it. People remember it then.
People remember it then, and then they're more aware of the fact that they did receive it, if you know what I mean. And not having clear payment terms. Okay, so if you pay late, what happens? Or can you pay by installments? When should the next payment be due? Is it when you finish the job, when you start the job? Or is it 30 days after you finish the job? Don't let them wag your tail, Make sure you, the dog, are wagging your own tail.
So you could put that payment schedule in writing as well.
Yes, exactly. So if that's what they want and if that's what they've asked for, you write an email to confirm it. And that just creates that responsibility between you two because we all get so busy. And not following up the person who owes you money, the debtor. So if you don't follow them up quickly, to them, subconsciously, they're probably going, well, it's not important anyway, So chase it up. Show them you care, even if it's $1. Show them you care.
Best way to chase it up is sending another invoice with a reminder or a phone call or an email or...
Yes, that would be the first thing. I think the first thing is email. So software today... and I always talk about Xero, not because they pay me. They don't pay me. It's just software that I particularly like because I think it's fluid.
Xero, by the way, is the name of the software. It's not just a number. Xero with an X, if you're trying to look it up.
Xero. Yeah. So, and others can do this, I'm sure, but you automate the process. So when you send the invoice on Xero, for example, you can send invoice reminders automatically. So you can set it to send invoice reminders even 2 days before it's due. Send one when it's 3 days late. And you just change the wording of when it's due. And then send a third one as well. But then I also make sure on the third one, copy me in. And then it will send me a copy of that reminder as well. And after that, I just simply ask people, hey, did you get this? And it's got the email at the bottom.
That's a really great way to start the conversation. The email's all automated. It's not really from you. It's from your system. So just checking that you got my email.
That you've been getting these emails and, and get a response. So make sure you ask very strong questions like if they did get it, yes. If you did, please let me know when payment will be made. If you didn't, please let me know. It's very hard for people to deny that, especially if they got the email anyway. So just like I said, just keeping the communication open. But it simply includes all those reminders for you. But you also need the right details at the beginning. Have an onboarding process with your clients to make sure you have a phone number and an email. Then it just stops these problems from happening.
So what about if you've gone through this, you've sent the emails, you've followed up with a phone call, you've sent by snail mail a copy of the invoice. You're still not getting paid. What are your options then for getting money out of people?
My opinion, you call it like it is.
What does that mean?
Okay, yes, not the wrench. But, you just write and say, look, this invoice you just state facts. It was issued on this date. It was actually due on this date. I emailed you on this date, which is that third one, to check if you have it paid. I really would like to know when it would be paid because a service or a good has been provided. And if you really value someone's business, you would do the same, if that makes sense. And leave it open and say, if there's any issues with the way things were done, give me a call. by then it's kind of really hard to, but if there's something they need to talk about, great. But you say, I'd just like to clear the decks as soon as possible. And yes, it does get to a point where it's completely way too late, and you might need the help of a lawyer to write a letter for you.
What about debt collection services?
Yes, so they're there as well. So they're available, and you just need to do your research. Of course, I don't know. I've just always used someone with a legal background in dispute resolution, because that's where you're heading. And then they write the relevant letters to make sure that it's all sorted, because it could end up costing you money. On the other hand, some people get really annoyed with the fake promises. And that's where you need to document it. So documenting helps if you are going to head off that way. But there's also the small claims court as well, where you can go and pay a fee. But it's time and money. So this is why it's best to get back to the foundations.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is all time that you're spent chasing up money that you should have got quite simply. So if you get the first step right, get that invoice template sorted with a due date.
With a due date, and communicate throughout the entire process. Say things like, ensure that they understand the next steps. If you are doing things, but don't assume that because you've asked to do something, I'll choose, say, a cake, for example. Give them emails to the date. Okay, so here's the next step. Here's the next step. Kill expectations, because that expectation comes through in the invoice.
Rightio. Now we can sort all our debtors. Everyone's going to go out there and because we all need as much money as we can at this time of year as all the bills start coming in.
Oh gosh, Christmas is coming.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Let's get on top of those debtors and save you some paperwork as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Kat.
No problem.
Talking debtors on Taking Care of Business. We'll be back next week around 10:30.